So are you thinking of playing a Warlock, but you're a little concerned because of all the decisions you have to make about all these invocations, not even to mention the spells? Well, you're in luck. Because behind today's secret door, Warlock invocations from levels 5 through 10, ranked. So behind today's secret door, Warlock invocations levels 5 through 10, ranked. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussion about Dungeons and Dragons, and my name is Matt Morrich. Alright, I have started a Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel, your help would be greatly appreciated and much needed. And many thanks to Marcelo, Doug, and Jamie for your support. The link will be in the pinned comment and in the description. All right, so very quickly here, I was working on a different video altogether, and it's kind of a complicated one. It's a build. I don't do a lot of builds, but I'm not even sure it's ever going to see the light of day because it's getting more and more complicated. So you're getting this for this week's video, and hopefully that one will come out next week. But this video was on the to-do list, so let's do this one now. So a few points that I'd like you to consider here first. First of all, we are only ranking invocations from levels 5 through 10, obviously, and I'm only considering invocations that are in the player's handbook. However, I am making one exception. I'm going to include it, even though I'm not going to put it in the numbered part of this. There's only 12 invocations from levels 5 through 10 that are leveled from between 5 and 10. This other invocation does come from Xanathars. Now, there's a good many of you out there that are using, or your DM is allowing Xanathars and Tashas and all that type of stuff, and that's all perfectly fine. I like to keep this as PHB centered as possible, but because I know there's so many of you out there, I figured I'd throw in one of my favorite invocations from Xanathars just so you see where I would prioritize it in the scheme of things, but it will not be numbered. It will just simply, I will mention it in its place. Now, I don't want to start a whole thing about this, why I'm including that one. It has to do with the very nature of a video like this. So the Warlock, when you're taking your early invocations, you're largely taking what you must have. And there's a lot of must-have takes, and most Warlocks are going to take those. But by the time you get to level 7 and level 9, you get a new invocation at level 7 and another one at level 9. You get 2 extra at level 5. But those 2 you're getting at level 5, they're generally still in the scheme of things must-take kind of invocations. So this list is therefore centered around what are not just how good the invocation is, but how they relate in the order of building your character. And I think by doing it this way, it will be kind of a more convenient, quick checklist to see if what you're planning on taking agrees with my list to whatever extent you want to value my list. Please don't make this out to be the gospel or anything like that. This is just my opinion. I think it's a good opinion, of course, but it's still just my opinion. And that being said, there are going to be some of these invocations that I rank very poorly, and I mean low on the list, that in the right circumstance, in the right campaign, in the right playing styles, all those things change. And I'll try and say that as much as possible with invocations that are still pretty good, but in the scheme of things, in most campaigns, are just not going to see a lot of value. So the criteria then is I'm not worried about if it's got a pact requirement to it. It's going to be ranked where I think it is in terms of its effectiveness and how must-take it is. Now, I think it does go without saying that Pact of the Blade and Pact of the Chain are the two most highly prized of the 3 pacts that are offered in the player's handbook. Now, in this group of invocations, there are 3 Pact of the Blade invocations. There are 12 total. So a fourth of them are Pact of the Blade. Only one of them is specifically Pact of the Chain, and only one other one is Pact of the Tome. So we only have 5 of the 12 that are actual pact-oriented, and the rest are really in that category of what you would look at and say, this is a luxury pick. That's why I'm situating the list in this way. So when we get high up the list, these are the ones that you would take at level 5, and then the lower ones on the list at level 7 and at level 9, you are approaching that point as a character, as a warlock, where you're going to be able to take luxury picks, things that aren't necessary, but you would love to have them. One of the very best of those, in terms of a sheer luxury pick, is in Xanathar's. It's one of my favorites, and that's why I'm including it here, although not in the numbered portion of the table, just simply where I would put it. Now, that being said, if you do have access to Xanathar's and you have access to Tasha's, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff that's still really, really good in there. I'm just throwing this one in just for fun because I personally love it. So don't think that if I'm excluding anything else from Xanathar's or Tasha's that I am hating on those invocations. I'm not. This is just one of my personal favorites. That's one that at its level, it pops out as a great luxury pick at the time when you would take it. I guess by that I mean its level requirement is literally when, in most cases, in most Warlock builds that I do, you're looking at a straight up luxury pick, and it's one of the better ones, in my opinion. So I include it for that reason. So at number 12, we have Master of Myriad Forms. Now, Master of Myriad Forms is essentially Disguise Self Plus. It's theoretically better than Disguise Self, but it's got some problems. Namely, its concentration. So while it can do some more things than Disguise Self can, in general, when you're casting Alter Self, probably you're casting it for the same reason you would be casting Disguise Self, and Disguise Self does not have a concentration requirement. So it's the concentration part that is the kind of deal breaker for me. I think I would just rather take Mask of Many Faces or just get a Hat of Disguise. So all in all, I'm really not a fan of this particular one. Most of these invocations, almost all of these invocations, I could see why I would take it. This is one where I just don't know exactly why I would take it. I know that it does some other things, but the reasons I would want it, I would be better off just taking Disguise Self. So here it is at number 12. And at number 11, we have Whispers of the Grave. So Whispers of the Grave allows you to cast Speak with Dead without using a spell slot. Now, from a lot of standpoints, I think that that's a really cool ability. The problem is with Speak with the Dead, they're under no compunction or compulsion to tell you the truth. So in Dungeons and Dragons, when something is dead that you could be casting this on, 9 times out of 10, it's an enemy. Also, 9 times out of 10, you killed it. So the idea that this is going to just come out, it sounds like a really great thing because you'll be able to get all this information, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you occasionally come across neutral things that or allies that were killed, and you can get that kind of information. And in those cases, it's a jackpot. It's great. It's wonderful in those scenarios. They just don't happen that often. And they don't happen often enough to warrant wanting to spend an invocation so that you can do this as many times in a day as you need to, when you might not even see a real great use for this once a week. So Speak with Dead will be useful, and when it is, you're really going to be glad you have it. Is that worth taking an invocation so you can cast it at will? I don't think so. So for that reason, I have it here at number 11. And at number 10, I have Ascendant Step. This is a level 5 requirement invocation. You're casting Levitate on yourself at will. And it's not that I have anything against levitation or levitate. I think it's actually a good spell. It's a good spell, but only on yourself, it isn't nearly as good. You can use levitate as a really great way of incapacitating or taking out a creature out of combat. It's one of those spells that actually can be surprisingly effective. So not only can it have the utility if you cast it on yourself or on somebody else that's friendly to allow them to get up to a difficult place to get to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's the spell itself and not via this invocation, the flexibility to allow you to be able to cast it on an enemy that doesn't have a ranged option to it, you can effectively take them out of that combat. Now, I still don't think Levitate is a must-take spell in any situation, but it's a good spell. It is a good spell, but only on yourself, not as much. And now we get to the other nitty-gritty part of it, and that is that it's concentration. So if we're talking about the utility of being able to get somewhere, well, I think I'd rather take Otherworldly Leap than I would Ascendant Step. And again, we're at that point in level 5 and going forward where magic items, uncommon magic items like winged boots and things like that are going to be popping up. And obviously concentration-free flight is way better than this. But all that being said, Levitate does have utility options to it, and it does have some tactical options to it as well. Because, I mean, being able to be literally above the fray in certain situations could be useful. I just don't see why I would take this over Otherworldly Leap in most cases. So it's outclassed by an earlier invocation, in my opinion. And so at number 9, we have Gift of the Depths. Now, Gift of the Depths is actually, I think, a pretty good invocation here. It does something that none of the others do. It gives you a swim speed, allows you to cast water breathing once per long rest. That's fantastic, but it's really situational. Now, those situations will come up in a D&D campaign. Almost certainly you're going to be swimming in something at some point, somewhere. It could be a trap. It could be just you need to swim across a moat, or you're in a lake, or whatever. It will come up. Does that situation come up enough to warrant it? And in my experience, unless you are playing in some kind of seafaring campaign, I don't see that I would prioritize taking this. The very definition of a luxury pick, though, and it does its job. It really does do its job, and only it does that job. So it's solid. So if you are playing in a seafaring campaign, obviously this would rotate up maybe even like 4 spots, like number 5. This should be one of the very first picks of luxury that you take outside of the stuff you absolutely have to have. If you're playing in an ongoing, really rough and tumble seafaring campaign, I think I would strongly consider taking this. So at number 8, I'm going to draw some ire from some of you, I would think. I have Gift of the Protectors. Now, Gift of the Protectors has a level 9 requirement, and it also has a Pact of the Tome requirement. Essentially, you can have up to your charisma modifier in names in your tome, and those people basically have Death Ward on them. So while that's really great, and it's a good ability, it really is, but it's also a level 9 ability. And I have to take Pact of the Tome. So I have to spend 2 invocations to get this? The real problem is in the last line of it. If it were blanket Death Ward, this would be crazy good. It'd be way higher on the list. Crazy good, and a really good reason to want to take Pact of the Tome. But that last line is the killer, and it basically says that if somebody does benefit from this, nobody else can until you complete a long rest. So it's essentially 1 Death Ward. Now, granted, you don't have to cast it 5 times if you have a 5 charisma modifier at this point. And so while Death Ward is great and it's powerful and I really like it, it's also taking you from 0 to 1. It's very easy for you just to get dropped again. So I'm not trying to run it down. I'm not trying to say that it's a bad power. I'm just saying that it's an awfully expensive one. So while Gift of the Protectors is not one of my favorites, it's also not something that I think is awful. It's just simply, it's definitely a luxury pick, but if you are Pact of the Tome, you may as well get it at level 9. And level 9 is when we are talking, like I said, level 7 and level 9 are luxury picks. This is kind of like that. It's a good luxury pick. It's defensive. That's nice. I like things that are a bit more active, but Death Ward for all, at least one of you, that's good. And at number 7, we have Visions of Distant Realms. Now, this one, when I first put this list together, this one was higher. Why? Because you're casting Arcane Eye without expending a spell slot. And Arcane Eye is an amazingly great spell. It's fantastic, and you don't get it on your spell list. So it absolutely should be higher than this, and it was until I stopped to think about it for a minute. And what's my favorite invocation that a Warlock can get? Pact of the Chain. If I'm Pact of the Chain, Arcane Eye is still really good. It's still really valuable. But I can do a lot of what Arcane Eye does with the Imp. So while Arcane Eye is one of those spells that if it's on a spell list, I'm always going to recommend it. It's one of the great spells at its level. It is at this point, though, it holds such a duplicative effect to Pact of the Chain that I can't recommend it higher. I still think you could make use of it if you were Pact of the Chain. If you're not Pact of the Chain, then obviously this should move up a little bit on the list for you. But even if you are Pact of the Chain and you wanted a luxury pick, because you could be sending the Eye one way and the Imp the other, and you can cover a lot of ground very, very quickly. So it just depends on the party composition and everything else. There's still value there for Arcane Eye. And here at number 6, we have One with Shadows. Now, One with Shadows is available to you at level 5. You are able to cast invisibility on yourself without expending a spell slot. However, you can only do this in dim, light, or in darkness. Now, that latter part doesn't sound like it's a really restrictive limitation, but it is a limitation. It's also a big limitation that it's only on you. So if we think about the difference between you as a Warlock having invisibility as a spell and you having this as an invocation, the spell is way more flexible because you could be affecting, as you upcast it, you're affecting more targets. So mass stealth and infiltration missions become very, very easy with an invisibility spell. That being said, obviously, it's effectively like getting a ring of invisibility because the ring of invisibility can't affect anybody else, and that's a legendary magic item. But it also, the ring of invisibility doesn't have the limitation of dim light or darkness, and you may not be saying that that's such a big deal, and it isn't. It's not a deal breaker by any means. I'm not trying to represent that at all, but any DM worth their salt is going to put you in a situation, once you become so reliant on turning invisible and getting out of things, where you're in light and there's nowhere to go. It could be just broad daylight and you would love to be invisible right now, but you can't. So yes, it is a limitation. It is a limitation that any good DM will and should punish from time to time. I'm not saying being punitive as a DM, but put a player, you've got to put a player that has invisibility at will. You've got to check them at some point just to challenge them a little bit. So, and your DM, if they're experienced, is going to know when the time comes for them to really put you in that pickle, and it's going to happen. So if you're familiar at all with the channel, you know how much I value invisibility. It's an amazing ability. It's amazing power. But with those limitations that I've mentioned, and the fact that invisibility is a spell I generally recommend that you take, and you upcast it as a matter of course, it's hard for me to recommend this super highly. But here at number 6, I think it's very solidly at a luxury pick status. I wouldn't take this at level 5 unless I had a very specific idea of what I was doing. In most cases, I don't think you really can afford to take it at level 5, again, unless you have a very specific build you're working with. So at number 5, we have Gaze of Two Minds. Now, Gaze of Two Minds is a really good luxury pick, and I'm calling it a straight up luxury pick because you don't have to have this one. There's going to be a lot of situations where you can just do very, very well without it. But it does do some things that really none of these other invocations can do, and they're useful things. But they're not essential to your build. There's really not a build I can think of that absolutely has to have Gaze of Two Minds. But as you're hitting like level 7, I think that there's going to be that room to be thinking about Gaze of Two Minds. It can serve a lot of different purposes. It's an extremely flexible invocation. I really like it, but I really liked what it was in 2014, and I hardly ever recommended taking it because it wasn't essential. I always recommended it sort of, I think around a level 9 or so is where I would say, you might want to take this now. So I would say Gaze of Two Minds now with the extra invocations you're getting now here in 2024. I think level 7 is something where you could honestly really make a really solid case for it. Now, we're not going to number 4 yet. This is my Xanathar's pick. This is where I would drop this one in, and the list would be 13 long as opposed to 12 long. But because Xanathar's is not part of the video per se, I'm just going to make the mention here that if you have access to Xanathar's, one of your very first luxury picks that you should think about taking at level 7, because it's available at level 7, is Ghostly Gaze. Ghostly Gaze is basically operating at a better and higher level than a ring of X-ray vision. You can see further, you can see through more stuff, and you can use it more times in a day. It's also very proactive in the sense. So I'm rating it a little bit higher than Gaze of Two Minds, because while Gaze of Two Minds, there are going to be little plans that you can pull off, little shenanigans you can pull off with Gaze of Two Minds that is active, and that's great. But Ghostly Gaze is allowing you to gather information where you wouldn't be able to gather it otherwise. Going through a door without having to go through it, seeing into a chest without having to open it. Those kinds of things I value just slightly higher than the kind of things that you can do with Gaze of Two Minds. It's ever so slightly. I prefer Ghostly Gaze over Gaze of Two Minds. Ever so slightly. So if your DM is allowing you to use stuff from Xanathar's, there's a lot of other good stuff out there, guys. I'm just saying that this is the one, when everything was available to me, I always wanted to try and recommend this at level 7. So I think if you have it available, you should still consider it at level 7. And here at number 4, and these last 4 are pretty obvious, I think, and I don't think there's a lot of justification needed. Number 4, I have Lifedrinker, getting extra damage, even though it is only once per round that you can get it. You can pick when you're getting it, so it's essentially an extra d6, plus crit chances and all that for your DPR per round. That's always something that you're going to want to try and grab in Pact of the Blade, with healing as a extra bonus. You don't get it till level 9 though, so but at level 9, I actually think that makes it even easier, because you're always wanting to grab every little bit of damage you can for Pact of the Blade. So, and obviously it's got a Pact of the Blade requirement, so it doesn't really have any competition amongst your level 9 choices, so it makes it a rather easy pick. And at level 3, with a 5th level requirement, all these last 3 are all 5th level, we have Eldritch Smite. Now, Eldritch Smite, if you are obviously Pact of the Blade, but if you're Pact of the Blade, you often are going to have, maybe when you consider one short rest in a day, magical cunning, and you're probably running Armor of Agathis as a Pact of the Blade, you will often have about 2 spell slots available to you. That isn't always true in every build, but it's true in a lot of them. Those 2 spell slots used as Smite, with their ability to be, by the time you can get this, that's a 3rd level spell slot. If you're doing it only when you're critting in the right situation, that's an enormous amount of damage. So, I mean, when you get to like your Pact Magic being 5th level slots at 9th level, 1 spell slot on a Smite that's a crit is going to average 54 points of damage. If you do that twice in a day, that's bumping and you have 12 rounds of combat in a day, that's bumping your DPR, overall DPR, by 9. That's a staggering number. The problem is, of course, with stuff like this, you don't know when you're going to crit. So if you're going to crit on something that is already really, really low in hit points, do you really want to be burning the Smite then and there, even though you did crit? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. So that is one bit of a problem with Eldritch Smite. And spell slots are generally a struggle for Warlocks in general, but there's an awful lot of builds out there now with Armor of Agathis that I think that you could very easily make the case that Eldritch Smite should be at number 3. Now, my pick at number 2 may surprise you. It might not if you're familiar with the channel. At number 2, I have Investment of the Chainmaster. So even though it's Pact of the Chain, and that's my favorite one, and I think it's the most powerful of the packs, it is, however, not necessary for Pact of the Chain. That's why Pact of the Chain is so crazy powerful, is you get all that you get, and you only need the one invocation to get all of it. Now, it's going to give you more stuff that you can do with Pact of the Chain, so it's kind of an embarrassment of riches, but if you were really wanting to play lean and mean and making every little invocation count, you don't really need investment in the Chainmaster. If you're wanting to rely on something like the Pseudo-Dragon, you do because you want that save DC to be high and you're getting the ability to give it resistance. There's definitely arguments to be made for it. That's why here, I have it at number 2. There's definitely arguments for it. I don't often recommend it, but now with the Pseudo-Dragon the way it is, I often do because of primarily the Pseudo-Dragon. It isn't just an imp-only world for me anymore. And at number 1, there's only one left. That's Thirsting Blade. Your Pact of the Blade, it's a level 5. It's an extra attack. You got to take it. It's not only a must-take. It's often the way a lot of builds work out with Pact of the Blade. You get those 2 new Invocations. You'll often see people actually take Pact of the Blade at level 5 and then take Thirsting Blade. And then they'll probably trade something else out to get Eldritch Smite. Or they might not on that last one. That is just definitely a call. But the character can really flip-flop at level 5. And Thirsting Blade is why it does. So, it just goes without saying that if you are going to go with Pact of the Blade, having that extra attack is essential. Absolutely essential. And it's really, really powerful. So, it's number 1. It's all these Invocations that I've mentioned. It's the only one that if you were playing Pact of the Blade specifically, it's a must-take. All the rest of these, very much luxury picks. Eldritch Smite, you really want it. Lifedrinker, you really want it. But Thirsting Blade, you gotta take Thirsting Blade. So that's the list. I hope you find it useful. If you want to use it as a checklist to just kind of check and see how your build is looking out and compare it to this. And again, whatever I'm saying is subject to the vagaries of your own table and your own personal preferences and what you think is fun. All that really, really does matter. These are just the ones that I think are the strongest in that order. All right. Well, that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.